Everybody give my wife a round of applause for doing that. Oh, thank you. All right. So everybody knows me, or most people here know me. None of you probably know Zac. So Zac Twardowski, when did you start? How many years?
It's been 7 years. Yeah.
So 7 years. And at this point, how many agents and what are we going to finish the year at with annual premium?
So we did 7.4 million last month with right around 600 agents issue piece of business. We'll finish the year life and annuity combined over 100 million for the year.
Insane.
Yeah.
Okay. So Zac, and how old are you?
29.
So younger than me. When do you turn 30?
April.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So younger than me. I'll be 30 next week. 29, build a massive business. And when you were 26, is that when you integrity?
Yes. Yeah. Right. I just turned 27. So
So-
it was June of that year. So just turned 27 and did the exit with integrity.
Okay.
Yep.
So at 20, just for context, because a lot of people are new here, at 27 years old, barely 27, he sold his agency, his book of business for, a lot of money. So what he's been able to do at the time, he was the youngest integrity partner. So to have access to Zac is super awesome. So we're going to dive in, ask a couple questions, and then depending on time, we may ask the audience if there's a couple questions. And I wanted to record it because my ADD, I'll miss some stuff, and so we want to make sure we have it. So,
hey, dude, real quick before you go, too, like you mentioned your wife, like all the spouses here, I could say this from my experience. I've been with my wife since we've been together for almost 10 years now. I started the business with her. She was teaching, now she's in medical school, or now she's in residency, she can be a doctor. There's no way I could have done this business without her support. So all of the spouses here, like you guys and kids, y'all play a bigger role than you guys know. None of us could do this without your support. Because I've seen what it feels like to have a wife like Ty's wife and like my wife that support you through the business. And that's like a superpower. Y'all could be the rock. When no one else believes in you, your spouse believes in you. So none of us would be here without our spouse's support. So I wanted to say first, thank y'all to the family that are here. It's important to have people like that in your corner, friends, family, whatever it is, whoever's in your corner, that's incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Second thing is without you and without Easton, like we started this 7 years ago. We were trying to get this thing up and rolling and I didn't have anyone that was fighting in this business with me until Easton started doing it. So everything we've built, everything we've gotten to now, without Easton, it never would have happened. Because whenever I would bring people in, I could point to him, and I'm sure we'll cover some of this stuff in the questions, but if you guys don't have someone that you can point to that validates your model, you're screwed. And all the crazy stuff that we said, none of it made sense until someone actually was willing to do the work, and I've never been around someone that worked harder and cared about people more than Easton. So if y'all could, give him a big round of applause, we would not be able to
love it. Okay, so we're gonna.
Now we're done being sentimental. Let's get some shit rolling.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Don't make me cry.
Yeah.
So 3 things. So we're gonna touch on. You're a brand. Like, take us back. You're a brand new agent.
Yeah.
Because I'd say majority of who's here less than 6 months. Majority less than 6 months. So brand new agents. Walk us through like what was your. Did you struggle at first? Like, how'd you get through that first? Let's call it 6 months to a year, where you're just trying to figure things out. What are a couple keys?
So I think there's a few keys. The first thing is like who's new. Well, you don't have to answer this, but when I was new, I had a couple $100 in my name. I had one credit card that had like a $500 limit because my credit was really terrible. Because when I was in college, you get there and they have all the tables set up and they're like, hey, we'll give you a free credit card. And I think I bought like some booze on a card and then didn't pay it for 4 years. And then I realized when I went to get an apartment, they were like, your credit is really bad. I'm like, how bad? And like, it starts with a 5. I'm like, is that bad? They're like, yeah, it's bad. I'm like, cool. Well, so I had the one credit card that I used in college to buy booze on one time that I hadn't paid for 4 years. And I had like a couple $100 to my name. So when you have to buy leads in that situation, it's a high pressure situation, right? Like, who here has bought leads when they're like, man, this better work, otherwise I'm kind of screwed? Has anyone felt that way before? So when I was a new agent, my goal was, my first month, my goal was to make $6,000, right? Like, I think goals grow over time. I think sometimes when we're leading people, we go like, someone tells you a goal like that, and you go, dude, but you could write 50 grand a month. And I was like, I just need to make like 6 grand, pay some stuff off, and I'll pay for my apartment. You know, I'm gonna let my wife do teaching and whatever she wants to do. Like, that was my goal at the time. And so I think the first thing was I needed to have super attainable goals. So I learned how to do things that I could control and have goals I could control. I wasn't good at sales in the beginning, but I could control the activity I put into trying to make sales, right?
Right.
So I could make a certain amount of dials per day, no matter how bad the leads were. We were in the field at that time. I could door knock a certain amount of people, right? Like there was things I could do activity-wise that required zero talent or know-how at all. And so if you're new, your goal should be early to maximize all the things that don't require you to be good. And if you do those things a lot, you'll get good later on, right? And so my goal was just to do as much activity early on as possible. In my first month, I issued 15,000. Second month, I issued 20,000. Third month, I issued 20,000. Then I went to annual convention. And when I went to annual convention, I have a picture. I'll just show some of y'all after this. It's funny. I had a mismatched suit. I looked like a dork. I'm like, man, my wife's hot. Why did she marry me? Like I looked like such a dork back then. I don't know what she saw in me, but I was at the annual convention. I had a big yellow legal pad. And I remember on the leaderboards going up to convention, I wrote down like the top 20 agents. And I was just like looking around, looking to see if and be like, hey man, which one can you point out John for me?
Yeah.
And I went up to all of them and had questions prepared for each person on there. And I like asked all the top producers everything that I wanted to know. Does anyone have a guess? There was one thing that was in common about them. They all worked different hours, different lead types. Does anyone have any guess to what was in common with them?
Their activity?
Not really. Their activity, no.
Consistency.
No. Nope. Nope.
Schedule.
Kinda. It plays into schedule a little bit. You have a guess?
Maybe they woke up at 4 or 5 a.m.
Nope.
Oh.
There were some lazy people in there. Anyone else got a guess?
Lead spend.
Lead spend.
Okay.
They were all the people that were top producers. When they trained, they talked about like, here's my 16 steps to close a final expense appointment. But then I would go like, hey, okay, cool. I'd ask them all the questions. And one of my questions was how much you spend on leads a week. And everybody who was writing over 40 grand a month told me they were spending at least $1,500 a week on leads. And I was like, got it. So all the other stuff you guys are saying about how good you are at sales or how good you are at closing, like none of that stuff really matters as long as you're willing to invest in your business. And everyone had different lead types, different styles. Some people claimed to be the best salesperson in the world. Some people claimed to suck at sales. And when I went home from that trip, I was going, my only goal was, okay, I had to figure out how to spend $1,500 a week on leads. And then that drove everything else, like the mindset, like the schedule, because I had pressure now. I had a couple grand in my bank. I spent $1,500 out of the $3,000 I had in my bank on leads first week, right? And then when I started putting that pressure on myself, then I had to have a good schedule. I had to become disciplined. I had to wake up early, right? I had to have a good mindset. All the things that you hear in training, like everyone knows what to do, right? Like if anyone in here not know how to get a six pack, it's like, you eat chicken, you live in a caloric deficit, and you hit the gym and you do cardio, right? It's like it's not difficult, but the hard part is implementing it, right? Same thing with this business. It's not a difficult business. You buy leads, you call the leads, and you close people over the phone. But sometimes we need a little bit of pressure to make it go. And what I realized happened was all the things I'd heard, all the training that I'd heard, once I had some pressure and the stakes were real, meaning I had something on the line where I was going to go broke if I didn't figure it out. All of a sudden I started implementing everything and I never sold below 30 grand a month again.
Because of the pressure, you were like, okay,
I'm going to make this work.
Yeah,
I'm going all in on this business. Yeah. I'm burning the boats. I'm going to figure this out. And once that happened, once I was invested in my business, then all the training I heard, magically I implemented it because it mattered at that point, right? So I think like everything else you'll hear, the most important and the driver of our business is having people to talk to. Because what I realized was I don't have to be very good at sales. Dude, I sold 403 grand my first year, and if I sat with 10 people, I would close maybe 3 of them. I was not good at it. I was pretty socially awkward. Easton sent me this. Are we recording this?
Yeah.
I was so socially awkward when I started. On the first floor, there's like something that says like, there's like an autistic center. And Easton's like, this is you when you were new. This is how socially awkward you were. I know that's not PC, but that's how weird I was when I was new. I had to learn how to talk to people. I had to learn how to have eye contact. I had to learn how to do sales. But I learned in this business, there's enough people who are going to buy no matter what. If you stack the deck so far in your favor, you can't screw it up. And that's the great equalizer, is if you're willing to spend money on leads and then you're willing to put all the work in, then you can sell 30, 40 grand a month. And I was never a top producer. Like the first couple years in the business, I never was someone who sold like 20 or 30 grand a week, but I just did like 10, 15 every single week. I'd work 60 hours a week. I'd do more dials than everyone else. And eventually the skill set caught up and I got good and I started closing more. But I wasn't focused on like closing 80% of my appointments. I was just focused on seeing so many people that the laydowns would buy for me. And I didn't have to be good because I knew it took longer to get good than to put work in up front. Does that make sense?
So basically, new agents, the cheat code is don't be good, just buy more leads and do more activity than everybody else, and eventually you will get good, and then obviously it compounds.
There's only three things. Like, there's only three things that contribute to someone being a good producer. Sean said it was simple. It's this simple. One is leads. And you should, if you're a manager, you should, whenever you're talking to an agent, you should figure out how to categorize them and to figure out where they're wrong. Or if you're an agent and you're trying to figure out and self-diagnose, you should run it through one of these three things. So one is leads, two is dials, and three is, there's not a great way to say this, but you suck. Okay? And what I mean by that is, like, you're just not good at closing yet. And this is where I want everyone to get to, is here, because I can fix this problem. That make sense? So my goal is, like, whenever someone calls, like, you'll get an agent that calls you, like, you know, say Ty calls, hey man, I want to go through my presentation with you. A lot of managers will go, sounds good, like, let's role play it, Chris. Let's role play the presentation. And you spend 45 minutes role playing the presentation. And you go, cool, how many dials did you make today? 13? Oh God, how many presentations did you do? One? And you didn't close the one presentation you made? Like, why are we talking about that? That's not the problem, right? So when you're either an agent trying to figure out where you're going wrong, or a manager trying to figure out where your agent is wrong, listen and make sure you ask them the right questions. How many dials did you make today? How many presentations did you do from that? How many of those people did you show numbers to? How many people did you close from that? And you can figure out, it's pretty easy. If they made a lot of dials and they did a lot of presentations, didn't close them, then you can focus in at the actual presentation. If they made a lot of, and you always start with dials. If they made a ton of dials, made 500 dials, I had 12 people pick up the phone, what's wrong? They don't have enough leads, right? So my goal is to direct everything back to the activity. How many calls are you making? Direct everything back to activity, and then I can diagnose from there where it's wrong. And when I learned this to self-diagnose, then I was like, man, I can scale the crap out of this business because I know it's a lot more simple than I thought it was. I thought there was so many more pieces to it. I'm like, there's only three things. And your goal is hopefully you get everyone to hear, because I can fix this. I can teach you how to close someone once we get to there. And hell, if you're doing 10 presentations a day, you're going to close 1 or 2 on accident because people want insurance. Because people know that, like, they woke up one morning and their neighbor died, or they were driving down the road and they saw a nasty accident, or they turned on the news and, you know, someone that they watched since they were a kid died. Like, people are going to buy life insurance. You'll catch people at the right time. They're going to buy from anybody. So your goal is just to get people to do as much activity here, and then you can help them get better from there. Does that make sense?
Love it. Cool. Awesome. Cool. So moving on past that, and by the way, what was your record, your best year annual premium issue paid?
I think it was right at, I know Easton's in there. He sent me the other day because he beat me by like $1,000 that year. Actually $800 that year, but it was like $700,000. And I think I ended up stopped selling insurance that year in October or September was last month I sold.
Wow. So 700,000 in 9 months.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
Only
true.
working the weekends?
From 100K to 1.1 million working the weekend.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's a good point. I can touch on that real quick. It's a good point Wiley brought up. So
Yeah.
like so guys, one of the things that was on the board, like why this business is so great, is because there's a low barrier to entry, right? Does everyone know what that means? Like, you can pay, how much you have to pay to get licensed and get a few states? Like $300, $400?
If that, yeah.
Maybe you'd be all in $400. Maybe you buy some leads, you're in $1,400. Like, anyone who wants to build a business can afford that. Not anyone who wants to build a business can go franchise a restaurant for $250,000, right? Like, this is a business where it's super easy to get into, which is a good thing when you're recruiting. Now, if you want to be a top 1% of top 1% earner, what does that mean? There's a lot of people that are in this business, so you have to do stuff to separate yourself from those people. And what I realized when I started selling was wanting to build a business is I'm like, what am I willing to do that everyone else is not willing to do? Like, and so I started only running business on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday so that I could get all my sales in. My goal was to hit $15,000 every single week. And then if I hit 15,000, Wiley will tell you, it could be 2 o'clock on a Saturday, I'd hit 15,000, I'd go, hey bro, I got 6 appointments left, go run them. I'm done, because I'm going to start building my business now. But I realized, like, if I was willing to work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like, does anyone think that sounds fun in here? No, it sounds terrible, right? But I was like, if everyone thinks that sounds terrible, then that means almost no one will do it. If I will do it, then I get this much of an edge on everyone else. Who's been here long enough to remember we used to dial every Thanksgiving? Does that sound fun to anybody? No, but I wanted to create a culture where it was okay for people to fit in and go, instead of me waking up at 6 in the morning and start hammering mimosas with my family, I can work and get financially ahead. One thing that Sean did for me that I don't even know if he realizes is, so I haven't drank in 3 years, right? It's not because, like, it's not for any reason besides it was either 0 or like 20. I just didn't have any like off switch with that. But I grew up in a culture around people. Like I grew up in Western Colorado in Grand Junction. The only thing to do there is like to do outdoor stuff or to get drunk, and we did outdoor stuff drunk most of the time. Like that's just what I grew up doing, right? And all my friends growing up, and I went to the University of Colorado, right? It's not Harvard. Like you go to University of Colorado to party and have fun, right? Like that's and to watch football now, which was not when I went there. But my friends and everyone that I grew up around, like they would work all week, and then at 5 o'clock on Friday they'd get drunk, and you get drunk Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You'd be hungover Monday, you'd start to feel better Tuesday, you'd be fine Wednesday, and then you'd do it again on Friday, right? Has everyone else lived that cycle before? This was the first place I felt like people were open about that is not the right way to live your life. And I heard Sean talk about his struggles with alcohol and stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't want to live this life. I just kind of was like used to it because of the people I was around. And there's always that old adage, like if you spend time with, this is probably not the exact one, this is my version, but if you spend time with 4 crackheads, you'll be the 5th, right? If you spend time with 4 millionaires, you'll be the 5th. Yeah, that's the professional version of it. There's no crackheads in the professional version. But I got around people who made it okay to not want to drink all the time and made me feel okay about that. And so I wanted to set that example for our group that, hey, it's okay to work on the weekends if you're trying to get ahead for your family. It's okay to work on holidays. And what we did is like we'd dial on Thanksgiving, we'd wake up early, I'd get home at 11 o'clock and like my family would be waking up, I didn't miss anything anyways. I'd be there for dinner, right? And so I wanted to Wiley's point, to work weekends, like I wanted to set that example so that other people realized it's okay. You don't have to watch college football all day Saturday and watch pro football all day Sunday and eat, drink, and gamble all weekend. Like you can if you want to, but if you want to take the path of setting your family up and setting your future generation up, this is an okay place to do that. And if you lead from the front, you can set that culture and it goes a long way. So running working the weekends was twofold. One, I knew no one would do it if the person who was leading the group wasn't going to do it. And two, if I could sell all my insurance over the weekends, then I could work solely on building the business during the week. And I knew most people wouldn't be willing to do that. So even if I wasn't as good, even if I wasn't as talented at recruiting or selling, if I was willing to put more hours in, then I would get further ahead of the people who were more talented but weren't willing to work as hard. Make sense?
So the theme I'm gathering is basically just work harder than everybody as a new
Yeah.
agent, and eventually you'll beat everybody, which you have.
And it's not forever, right? Like
Right.
It was for 3-4 years. I still work 60, 70 hours a week, 40 hours some weeks. But I was working like every waking hour for a long time.
Yeah.
But now I have 2 kids, my wife's in residency. Like I'm able to live a much more balanced life, see my kids. Every day I get home at 5 o'clock. And like if you try to call me between 5 and 7, I'm not answering the phone now. I'm hanging out with my 2 kids because we built the business to a place where I can afford to do that, right? And I remember when I was 22, a lot of people who were 30 and 40 and 50 with kids were like, dude, I would give anything to go back in the business at 22 years old and work my ass off so that I could spend a lot of time with my family now. And I can't have a time machine, but I can tell you to do that. And I'm glad that I did that. And there's a lot of younger people in here, like they have the opportunity to get up ahead of that. And I wouldn't trade anything but being able to spend time with my kids whenever I want to, right? Like, and we still work really hard, but I'm able to live a more balanced life. When you're starting this business, you have to be unbalanced for a while, and then you can earn the balance part of it.
Earn the balance. That's
Yeah.
great. So that's becoming a new agent, becoming proficient at selling. The next topic, and then we'll open up for questions. Keep it short. Now that you know, let's say your first year's done, you know how to sell. Did you always want to build a business, or no? You didn't.
When I first started, I wanted to sell for 2 years and then go back to medical school. That was my initial goal: stack some money aside and then go back to school. And then I made I think I netted like $275 my first year. And I called my dad. I was like, hey, because my dad's a doctor. When you graduated college, how many years did it take you to make over 275 grand? He was like, 14 years. I'm like, that. I'm definitely not waiting that long. I mean, making money's cool. I'm good, and I like helping people. So after that, I was like, maybe I'll just sell for a while.
Okay.
And then I had a few people who reached out, like warm market, that were like, hey, what are you doing? And I started kind of accidentally building a business.
So people reached out to you because they saw. I mean, were you posting about it? Like how they?
Not really. I think they just were like, how can you afford to go on vacation? Like you're living a little bit
I see.
differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So walk us through. Obviously, you know, there's, as far as I know, there's Easton, Wiley. Those are some of the guys. Those are some of the OGs that started with you.
Yeah.
Walk us through your process of finding guys that are willing to. I mean, Easton is one of the hardest workers in here.
Yeah.
Willing to run with you, and then how do you train Easton, get him up to speed, and then move on to the Wiley, and then the next person, and then how do you do that?
I think, like Sean talked about recruiting, the best way to recruit now is to do it on social media. Like we didn't do that early on. We spent a lot of money on cold market recruiting, which does work, but social media is a lot better because you reach out to someone and then they can watch you and then they can keep watching you and then they can see like, okay, like 3, 4, 5 months down the road, he's still doing this and he's still making this amount of money. So there's a lot more proof and there's a lot more validity to it.
Yeah.
Whereas like you call someone on ZipRecruiter one day, like unless they're pretty desperate, it's kind of tough. It's kind of a tough pitch, right?
Right.
And they're not seeing you every day because usually if you reach out to someone on social media, they'll start following you, interact back and forth, And your goal should not always be to close someone day one. Like there's a few people that worked at other companies that had talked to a bunch of people that worked at FFL, and I was super nice to them up front and just was like, hey, like kind of joking with them, like, hey, if you ever decide to make the jump, like I just want to be your guy, right?
Yeah.
And I asked one of them, their group does like $800,000 a month now. I said, hey, why'd you decide to work with me instead of everyone else? He's like, and he worked there for 13 years, okay? And he's like, when I told everyone else no and I needed more time to figure out what I wanted to do, like they started bashing me and talking about how bad my company was. And he was like, I worked there for 13 years, so it pissed me off because I felt like I spent my life building this company that they were crapping on.
Yeah.
You were just like, hey man, like if the door's always open, like let's still continue to communicate. And you weren't rude about it. So when something happened in my business, like you'd been professional and easy to talk to, so I reached out to you. I'm like, God, that makes sense, right?
That's wild.
So I think a lot of people like if you're talking to someone who sells solar or pest control, whatever, and they're like, I want to do this still right now. It's like, sounds good, man. Like you should keep doing that. Maybe on the slow season, get licensed with us, right? But you don't have to tell people to work with you right then and there. That makes sense?
Just leave the door open.
Leave the door open, right?
Yeah.
So to your question about like how to actually get some people up and rolling, the way I like to do it is you want to cast a wide net and recruit a lot of people, and then watch people through the process and decipher who to work with.
Okay.
I think a lot of people's biggest struggle is you have like 10 agents writing, and you want all 10 of them to do. I was talking to Cal about this morning. It was great. He's like, hey, our average per writer is not as high as I'd like it to be. What should I do? I'm like, what do you think you should do? He's like, well, I think I should call all the people who sell between 0 to 10,000 and work with them. Raise the hands. Who in here thinks that's the right thing to do in that situation?
That would be my thought.
That'd be your thought, right? They were all lying because they knew I set it up right. Where they're like, that's definitely
my
wrong.
thought.
That's not the right one.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude. You want to spend your time with the top people as far as effort goes, right?
Yeah.
So like you want to take and look at your team, say who's putting in the top 20% of effort. And
So
you want to
effort, not results.
effort, not results,
Okay.
right? So who's like, if I had to rank my team 1 through 100 or 1 through 10, say you have 10 people. I have 10 people. Which 2 are putting in the most effort?
Right.
You should spend 90 to 95% of your time with those 2 people. Because the people that are working 10, 15 hours and selling 10 grand a month, they don't need your help to not work and to suck anyways.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't deserve your help.
Right.
Like Ty sells 500 grand a year. That's an amazing skill set that he has that he can teach other people how to do. So he should act like it, right? Like his time is very valuable and he should act like it. So you should only reciprocate your time and energy to people who are putting in the same amount of effort. And I think a lot of people tend to go like, let me get the bottom 5. I'm like, dude, the bottom 5 are gonna do bottom 5 stuff anyways. I wanna help the top 2 go from 20 to 50 and then find 2 more top 2 people and then teach those top 2 everything I know, how to recruit, how to build. So my goal was like, can I teach each and everything I know? And then once he knows everything I know, then pass him off to Sean to let him help. Then can I teach Wiley everything that I know? And then once I've taught him everything I know, like I'm not gonna overstay my welcome, pass him off and Sean can help him because Sean knows how to get to where he's at.
Okay.
And then keep doing it again. I think a lot of people's mistake is instead of going like, Wiley, you should build a relationship with Sean, they go, I'm just gonna stay and like protect Wiley and make it, like dude, he doesn't need my help that much anymore. If shit hits the fan, he calls me. That's about it, right?
Yeah.
And we catch up once in a while and he asks my advice occasionally. But he doesn't need me to be there every second, every day. And a lot of people stay and just like want to only build with that one person. My goal is to get them competent and then move on to the next person and find the next person.
Yeah, pass up.
Yeah, can I build like, and then the other thing I learned, and I learned this with Easton early on, was if you don't know something, don't pretend like you don't know. So if you don't know something, don't make it up. I remember he was running like 50 appointments a week early on. And I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you run 50 appointments closing one person. This is like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But I tried to figure it out for like a couple days, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I called someone who knew what they were doing. I'm like, hey, can I 3 with my guy? He's running 50 appointments a week, and he can't sell anything. I don't know why. Can you help him out? And I threw him in with someone, and then they coached him up, and they were like, oh, like, and it was something stupid. It was like you're trying to get through the appointment so fast. You're spending 10 minutes with the people. You're building no value. Like, slow down, right? Yeah, okay, then they fixed it, but I didn't know what to fix, so I didn't pretend like I knew what to fix, right?
Yeah.
And I think our tendency is like you want to be the solution for everyone. I'm like, I would just rather find the right solution than guess and give you the wrong answer.
So always go to the actual solution.
If I don't know for sure,
Not
I'm
just
gonna
guess,
call
yeah.
someone who knows for sure.
Okay.
If I know for sure, I'll tell you. But like, and Wiley could tell you. Like, he's called me with stuff before. I'm like, dude, I have no idea. Let's call Sean. But if I know, I'll be like, this is the right thing to do. And I think that you shouldn't guess if you don't know. That's how you lead people the wrong way.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep, makes sense. Last thing, we'll open up for a couple questions. So now, what is your, and this just real quick, what is your focus now? 600 agents. What is like going to move? I'm assuming you want to grow,
Yeah.
right? So 600 to 1,000 to 2,000 agents. Like,
Yeah.
what are you focusing on now?
Ronnie asked me this the other day. My goal next year is for our top 10 managers to all net 7 figures. Because I think that's a really cool goal. And that's always been the goal, is not just for you to do it, but for you to bring people with you.
Yep.
Our goal is to be at least $20 million in premium next year. And then my goal is to keep finding like the person that I needed when I was 22 years old was John. And he helped me with a lot of stuff, and Sean. They helped me get through parts of my life. Like, I needed to grow up as a person. I needed to get sober. I needed to learn how to be a business person. I needed to learn how to be a confident person that felt good about being a husband and a father too. So I want to be that person for people who need that now, and help mentor people in life and in business, and help the next people get to 300, 400, 500 grand a month.
Okay.
So I want to be the person now that I needed when I was 22.
Yeah.
For as many people as possible.
Awesome. Perfect. So we have short on time, but let's do 2 questions. Nothing about underwriting or product. 'Cause Zach,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say ask Easton.
Yeah. And he'd say ask Ty.
Yeah, ask Ty.
Jesse? No. 2 questions. Or 1. Or none. Gavin?
So my main thing right now is I really try to recruit, but for me it's really difficult because, I mean, I do look 15 years old. So when I sit down with someone and then I'm like,
But why does that matter that you look 15?
I don't know if people don't, I mean, you're sitting in front of a kid who is 18 years old. I've been in this business 4 weeks, so for me it's super difficult to try to tell someone like, hey, you have an opportunity.
How much have you made for the 4 weeks you've been here?
4 weeks, I've sold 3 policies and I've made like $400 off Eastern.
$400 from each policy. So you made like $1,600 so far?
Yeah.
So how many people in America do you think could use an extra $1,600 a week? Everyone, right? So who cares how old you are?
Yeah, but that's like.
So you have to internalize that for yourself though, right? Like, same thing I was telling Ty, like, his value is that he can sell 500 grand a year. So he shouldn't be wasting time with people who don't want to do the business seriously. Like, he should be focusing on people who are killers and want to grow the business and want to sell 50, 60 grand a month. And if he doesn't have a lot of them, then he should find more people that want to do that, right? Like, same with you. Understand, like, even though you're brand new and you have a very limited experience, like, a lot of people drive Uber. The guy that drove me here this morning had a nice, black Suburban, and I was like, how long have you been doing this for? He's from Ethiopia. He said, for 11 years. I'm like, you like it? He's like, I love it, man. It's the best thing I could possibly do. Like, life couldn't be any better. And I was like, how much do you make doing this? And he's like, oh, I make like 4 or 5 grand a month. I'm like, dude, I have a lot of people who sell insurance who make that a week. Are you interested in working in insurance? He goes, of course I'm interested. No one's ever brought that up to me before, right? So my point is, like, you have an amazing opportunity for people. It's not about you, it's about the opportunity. So your only job until you have the skill set is to go like, hey man, I'm doing this thing. I made $1,600 my first month so far. Don't know what I'm doing yet. Easton's been doing it for a long time. He makes $800-900 grand a year. He sells a ton of insurance. I'd love for you to meet him because I think this opportunity would be great for you. Would you be interested in learning how to make a couple grand extra a month, or doing this full time and making $100,000, $200,000 a year? I would. Cool. Let me introduce you to Easton, and then you can listen to him interview people. But like, a lot of these things we put on ourselves. Like, I was talking to one of the guys in our group who we just Neil Brown just did $10 million for the year. I was talking to him 2 years ago. He goes, I hear he's 60 years old. He's amazing. He's like one of the best, genuinely best people I've ever met in my life. And he said to me a couple years ago, he goes, hey, I feel like I have a hard time recruiting people because I'm old. I'm like, why, dude? I go to you for like life advice. And he was like, yeah, but we should hire younger people, right? I'm like, dude, just because you're 60 years old, like, he sells 50 grand a month. He's an amazing person. I'm like, you're putting up this limiting belief on yourself. Just because you're 60 years old you should use that as an asset. You have a ton of experience. You can mentor people. So you being younger, you shouldn't put that as a limiter. You should be like, I'm young, I'm new in this business, I'm making a couple grand a month doing it, and I'm gonna link you up with Easton. He's gonna show you how to do the same thing. That makes sense? So don't put these self-imposed. What's up, dude?
I don't mean to interrupt. I really apologize.
Yes, sir.
Dude,
What did Easton tell you?
hold on a minute. Yeah. I'm sorry, whatever your thought
You're good.
was, you're good.
I'll remember it.
First of all, is somebody 9.5 months pregnant here? Where's she at?
Giving birth.
When are you due?
January 11th.
And you flew from Montana? You have no excuses now. Thank you for that. You and your husband's in Montana, just hoping the baby's born in Montana. Yes, I can understand that. How much you sell a month?
Like 60.
And how many of the people in this room are yours that work with you? A lot of them?
Yeah.
How long you been with us?
3 years.
This guy's a stud. I know you already probably all know that, but I'm just saying, like, this is how you scale something. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
you're
I
good,
mean,
dude.
I was rude and stuff, but I didn't want
appreciate it.
No, but I mean it. Easton was bragging on you. What's the most you've done in a month personally?
140.
140 in a month.
Well, 139. Sorry.
139. Make you rethink what you're doing. What are you selling for products?
Well, now IULs.
That's a great answer.
That's great. You guys are both studs, but I just had to say
He's-
that.
I appreciate it.
I mean, I didn't say when I came up here earlier about it being in your office and everything else. That's my fault.
I
So,
appreciate it.
I appreciate you, dude. Sorry about that. I make mistakes,
good.
but I rectify them. Go ahead, Zach. Whatever you're saying.
We'll see you in Dallas.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll see us in Dallas. And everybody should be there. She'll be there. Maybe she's having a baby.
That makes sense though.
Yeah, no, thank
Cool.
you, I appreciate it.
Last question. Let's go, Bear.
Do you think it's a necessity to have a mentor for people who are in their early to mid, maybe later 20s, maybe struggling to find their place? Like,
Yeah.
Do you feel like that helped you out a lot?
I do, yeah. I think people mistake mentorship a lot, and they go like, they just wait for someone to like come and like pluck them out of the sky and mentor them. Like the way that you should find a mentor who's in your exact business, doing exactly what you need at the time, and your mentors will change, right? So like if you're like, I need to get to sell $50,000 a month, like Ty should be your mentor. Now he should not mentor you unless you're doing the right amount of work, right? So I think a lot of people go like, oh, like how'd you get great mentorship? I'm like, I worked 100 hours a week and was just calling everyone and asking for help. And if I called someone and I wanted their help and they didn't call me back, I didn't throw a fit about it. I called them again the next day and the next day and the next day. And I didn't care. I didn't take anything personally, right? So like the answer is yes. Like there's people who know how to get to where you want to get to already, right? Like this is why Sean's my mentor. He knows exactly how to get to where I want to get to. So I take as much time as I can with him and I take it very seriously and I don't waste his time because I want to get to where he is at, right? And I think your mentors will change, but you have to find people who know who know how to get to where you want to get to, and ask them good questions and implement it right away. Like the fastest way, like say you're going to Thai, you start. I don't know if you're working 80 hours a week or 60 hours a week, what you're doing now, but say you start working really hard, do everything Thai tells you to do, and then you're asking him questions, and then you don't implement it. Like that's the fastest way for him to not want to mentor you anymore, right? And he would call and say, hey, should I keep mentoring him? Be like, is he doing what he tells you to do? Or what you tell him to do? No. No, stop, dude. Go mentor him instead. Go talk to Jesse. Right? So what I learned was if you implement what your mentors tell you right away, even if it doesn't work, like I stopped thinking too much. And it was like, if it works, it doesn't work, like he told me to do it, I'm gonna try it. And I think our tendency as people is to try to prove people wrong. Like they say something that doesn't make sense and you say like, you try to figure out the reasons why that doesn't make sense. I changed my mindset to go like, okay, Sean said something that sounds crazy. I'm going to try it anyways. I'm going to try to prove him right. Because at least then he wants to keep helping me because I'm trying to implement what he's telling me to do. And most of the time it was right. It just wasn't, it was counterintuitive, didn't make sense to me, but it didn't make sense to me because I hadn't figured that out in business yet. So why would it make sense to me, right? So I think the answer is yes. You have to find mentors and you have to do the amount of work necessary to be mentored. That make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
All right,
Everybody
guys.
give him a round of
Appreciate y'all.
applause.